Plastic Man has been a slow burn over the years. His popularity has been a roller coaster, from having 10-year gaps between being published, to him headlining his own animated series, back to people not really knowing who he is, to becoming a beloved member of the Justice League of America. In more recent years, his appearances in Batman the Brave and the Bold, as well as unforgettable moments in comics like Injustice and Deceased, have earned him his place at the top of the B tier of superheroes, and it's only a matter of time until he shows up in a film and solidifies himself as the cream of the crop that rose to the top. With a history dating back to 1941 and being a DC property that means being rebooted a time or three, I'm Haussmann Comics, and thank you for joining me as we take a look at the many first appearances of Plastic Man. Right off the bat, I do need to say that while Plastic Man predates other flexy, stretchy heroes like Mr. Fantastic or the Elongated Man, he was not the first hero with those powers. A year or so before Plastic Man would debut, Timely Comics, now Marvel, would introduce two such characters within 3 months of each other, Flexo the Rubber Man and the Thin Man. But this video is not about that. So Jack Cole created Plastic Man in 1941 for Quality Comics, first appearing in Police Comics #1 alongside other heroes like the Human Bomb, the Firebrand, Phantom Lady, and the Mouthpiece. So this is where it all began. What was the iconic origin that would give him these fantastic powers? He got shot and had acid spilled on him. That was it. That's how he got his powers. There's so much more to the character that's established right here in this first issue, though. One of the most definitive attributes of the whole Plastic Man character is that he used to be a criminal. That is what is established right here. That's why he was in the chemical plant. Him and his gang were on a big heist, and they got caught, and a guard shot him, and he fell into acid. But the fact that he was a criminal was established right there. There was no big elaborate double cross that saw Eel O'Brien locked up for years where he learned the error of his ways. No, he got shot by a guard, hit acid, and he wound up stumbling out to a monastery. Like, comics don't make sense sometimes. But while he was at the monastery and with his newfound powers, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna turn over a leaf, I'm gonna become a hero. Then he went back to his gang and said, give me my cut of my money, because I earned that. So he took that money to fund himself, I guess. One of my favorite things that was actually established here was that he doesn't wear a mask or anything like that, because he's Plastic Man. So he literally changed his face when he became a hero so people wouldn't recognize him. On top of that, he kept being a criminal. So he stayed being a criminal during the day, so he could get, like, news about other criminals to stop. But, you know, Clark Kent can go be a reporter all he wants, but, like, Plastic Man's willing to bend and break the law to uphold it. So I thought that was really cool. Unfortunately, it didn't last too long, because it was like 10 issues later and he found a paying gig with the National Bureau of Investigations, and he got Woozy Winks, who was like this bumbling inept sidekick who served as comic relief as if that was something Plastic Man needed. So Plastic Man and Woozy would continue to appear in Police Comics up till issue 102, as well as his own series, which began in 1944 and ran for 64 more issues, right up until DC bought Quality Comics and all of its characters in 1956. There were only 4 quality series that DC kept running: Black Hawk, GI Combat, Heartthrobs, and Robin Hood Tales. 2 of those ran on into the 80s, and you can guess which 2 if you want. Despite being the face of Quality Comics for nearly 15 years, Plastic Man was put on the shelf for the next decade. His next first appearance could have been in The Flash #112 in 1960, if rumors are to be believed. That was where the first appearance of Ralph Dibny, the Elongated Man. He was created as a supporting character for The Flash, and there's an ancient legend that reads that editor Julius Schwartz said, and I quote, "I don't know. I suppose had I known I could have used Plastic Man, maybe I would have." And also, Julius Schwartz, that's where Mel Brooks came up with the name The Schwartz for Spaceballs. I honestly wouldn't necessarily believe either of those facts. It's true, Elongated Man and Plastic Man have very similar abilities, but their characters would stretch into very different and distinct directions over the years. Plastic Man's true first appearance for DC Comics was in July 1966, sort of. It was in the pages of House of Mystery #160 by Dave Wood and Jim Mooney. We have Dial H for Hero. Bear with me for a second because I have to explain what Dial H for Hero was. There was this kid named Robbie Reed, and he had a dial, like a rotary phone. And when he dialed HERO, he would turn into some random hero. Not an existing hero, but like a new hero they made up, like Giant Boy, or Quake Master, or Hornet Man, or the Human Starfish. He's still himself, but he has the powers and body of this new hero up until he dials OREH and reverts back to normal. So, in this particular occasion, he dialed Hero and became Plastic Man, as he put it, that famous crime-fighting hero from years ago. So again, not technically Plastic Man, but I think that was all just to prime everybody, get the audience ready for what was his next first appearance, sort of, was Plastic Man Volume 2, Issue #1 in 1966 by Arnold Drake and Gil Kane. So this one was something else. It wasn't a reboot, it wasn't a retelling, it was just different. Plastic Man was a little goofier, and he had this new supporting cast. There were no familiar faces, like Woozy Winks was gone, but we had Gordon K. Trueblood, and he sucks, and I'm glad he would be erased from existence. It's not all negative though. There was this one police officer who kept coming back, and he was convinced that Plastic Man was only acting as a hero because he was a criminal, which was a callback to his early Quality Comics appearances, and it added a comedic layer that I liked. But issue 7 of this series, it was actually revealed that that Plastic Man was the son of the original Plastic Man, which I guess makes issue 7 his first appearance. He and both Woozy show up looking a lot older. But when Crisis on Infinite Earths comes around, it would establish that the first 10 issues of that series took place on Earth 12 and they were wiped from existence. Before that 10th issue though, Plastic Man would also appear in The Brave and the Bold, #76 by Bob Haney and Mike Siekowitz. And that issue, Plastic Man teams up with Batman against the Molder, who was like a guy that could shape and shoot plastic. Anyway, Batman and Plastic Man, they are aware of each other, they know they exist, they team up, they have no problem getting along. What is of note, though, is that even as far back as the 1960s, like, Plastic Man was a force to be reckoned with. He gets broken into a bunch of pieces, and as Batman collects them, he can just put himself back together. So, I mean, there's a hint at immortality right there. After the less than stellar 10 issues of Volume 2 ended in 1976, Plastic Man would sit relatively unused again until 1975, where he would appear in Brave and Bold number 95. Though I should note, in 1973, there was Justice League 107 by Len Wein and Dick Dillon, Crisis on Earth X you've probably heard of, and on Earth X, we meet the Freedom Fighters, which was Uncle Sam, the Human Bomb, Phantom Lady, Ray, Black Condor, the Doll Man. All of which were, of course, Quality Comics characters appearing for their first time since 1956. In their backstories revealed that Plastic Man was with them and died. So that marks the first appearance of Plastic Man of Earth X, which would later be retconned to be from Earth 2 traveling to Earth X to help everyone. Whew, so I guess that's the first appearance of Plastic Man from Earth 2. Yeah, so in 1976, 8 years later, his second volume would actually pick up again with issue 11, and this one was a return to form for Eel O'Brien. He was much more in character with his Quality Comics appearances. He was working for the NBI, and Woozy Winks was back by his side. If you are keeping track, that's the third first appearance of Woozy Winks. So with issues 1 through 10 of that series being on Earth 12, his flashback appearance being with the Freedom Fighters from Earth 2, the first official appearance of Earth 1 Plastic Man was actually back in Brave and Bold number 76, as that was more in line with the true Plastic Man that would later show up in issue 11. And in the time that followed, he would go on to appear semi-regularly in Adventure Comics, in the Brave and the Bold, and a few other guest appearances, while his Earth 2 counterpart actually played a big part in the World War II series All-Star Squadron, actually assembling that World War II era team under direct orders from FDR. Despite not having his own ongoing comic series in 1979, Plastic Man actually got himself an animated show on television. There was a series in development for Filmation in 1967, but that got cancelled before it even began. But this one in 79 was full speed ahead. He was voiced by Michael Bell. Plastic Man ran for 2 years and then was re-aired in syndication with live action segments added, where Plaz was played by Taylor Marks.
Plastic Man here reminding you that the next time you lend somebody a helping hand, be sure you get it back. So long.
Back in the comics, Crisis was looming. In 1986, the Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. If you're unfamiliar with the Crisis, it was a big story that served to merge all of the different Earths of the DC into one, just clearing up the continuity, right? So redundant doubles of characters were deleted from existence, and every character that was under the DC banner was now, and always had been, living on one Earth. It was a company-wide reboot, and with a company-wide reboot comes another first appearance. Plastic Man Volume 3, Issue Number 1, with a cover date of November 1988. This 4-issue miniseries was written by Phil Foglio, and Plastic Man and Woozy Winks were reintroduced once again. Now right away, two things jumped out at me. The first was this was like a very heightened comedy look to these issues. I honestly don't even know how to explain it, but like, there's some comics from that time that just have that feel to them, and you know right away they aren't to be taken as seriously as the other books. Like, does that make sense? If you've read them, you've read them. It makes sense. The other thing I noticed, though, was that they took a lot of care in retelling his origin. He was a crook who was shot on a heist, and he fell into the acid, like the same thing. But if you take a look at this, Phil Foglio went out of his way to recreate the original panels, word for word, pose for pose. I think it's awesome. Maybe it's just lazy, I don't know. But of course, at least 2 times before that miniseries, and 1 time after, in All-Star Squadron number 60, Infinity Inc. number 39, and Young All-Stars number 27, Plastic Man would appear again, much like his Earth 2 counterpart in flashbacks, alongside the World War II heroes. And then after 0 Hour, which was a crisis in time and a whole thing on its own, it'd be reset, so that he was a hero in World War II, and he was still alive, because his body's not really human, so he's immortal, and he's alive to continue his adventures in the modern day, making Plastic Man a lot like Captain America, sort of. And from there, Plastic Man would only again make sporadic appearances, here and there, until in the 90s, Grant Morrison would dust him off and bring him into the Justice League of America. And that is when he kind of exploded into the cultural zeitgeist, in my opinion. After that, he was everywhere that the League was. He even got another crack at his own solo series with its own unique style. During his time with the League, there's a few things of note. He found that he had an estranged son that he knew about, but he found him anyway. Not the guy from Earth 12, but somebody else entirely. Luke O'Brien, who would eventually go on to be the hero of his own named offspring. As well as the Justice League traveled back in time 3,000 years, and Plastic Man was like frozen and smashed, and they were forced to leave him there because they didn't have the technology to find him. But he actually spent 3,000 years pulling himself together. So the Plastic Man you see in comics today is about 3,100 years old. It was also revealed he doesn't really have a brain, so he's immune to telepathic probes and attacks. So now's a good time to talk about some more animation appearances. Plastic Man did not appear in Justice League Unlimited. He was mentioned in the episode titled The Greatest Story Never Told.
Plastic Man's down there. We don't need 2 stretchy guys.
So why, at the arguable high point for this character, would Plastic Man not be on like the greatest cartoon ever? There's heavy speculation that Plastic Man couldn't be used, stating that Warner Brothers wasn't sure if they actually owned the rights to use him or not, because that was the case with the Blue Beetle. But that's been proven false, and he was just left out of the timbers because he also had a solo series in production at that time. A pilot was filmed with Tom Kenny, but it actually wasn't picked up.
Feel the long arm of the law, you no-good goon!
So of course, when they began work on a Batman team-up series, having Plastic Man show up was a no-brainer. I'd be willing to bet that several of you watching here, your first exposure to Plastic Man was probably through Batman Brave and the Bold. Anyway, we're gonna jump back into comics, because this is DC, so there's another reboot, right? Everybody's ramping up to the new 52. But actually, before that, we did get to see a villainous version of Plastic Man in the Flashpoint universe. But we're gonna put a pin in that, and we'll circle back around in a minute. How many first appearances did Plastic Man get in the new 52? More than one, which seems odd for any character. Justice League International issue number 1 had the United Nations. They were putting a team together of international heroes to fight global threats, basically a Justice League they could control. You know, we had Fire from Brazil, we had Ice from Norway, Red Rocket from Russia, the August General in Iron from China, and so on and so forth. Booster Gold was their leader, which is awesome. But they asked, hey, should Plastic Man be on the team? And the Russian diplomat was like, niet, he's too zany, which a lot of people speculate that that's why Plastic Man wasn't in the new 52 at that point, because like the new 52 was a more serious reboot, and Plastic Man just too zany of a character to have included. Who knows? But that was honestly just a picture there to show everybody what they were going to do. So it's not an actual first appearance, but it's proof he does exist in the new 52, which makes his next first appearance make a little less sense. In Justice League, regular Justice League, local Justice League, Justice League of America, but it was just called Justice League. Anyway, 25. The Forever Evil storyline, which I do need to read. There was a guy named Eel who was a criminal, and he was dressed a lot like Plastic Man was in his first appearance. He's got a red rubber band that he keeps playing with, and then Owlman jumps through a window and shoots him, and he falls into some acid, and he turns into a big pile of goo that looks like he might pull himself together to become Plastic Man, but no, that was not confirmed to be Plastic Man, and Plastic Man did not appear in the new 52 after that again at all. So I still think it was Plastic Man, obviously. And then along came Rebirth. Rebirth was a return to what post-crisis DC universe looked like. It was before the new 52, but it still kept stuff from the new 52 that they wanted to. It was a rebirth, and that brings about the final first appearance for Plastic Man for now. Dark Days the Forge, number 1. It was a precursor to the Dark Knight's Metal. We see Mr. Terrific meeting Batman in a lunar bat cave, which is awesome. And they're talking about a bunch of multiversal stuff that's going to explode all over everything. And Batman's like, we agreed that he was unstable, that there was no end to what he could do if we weren't careful, but I'm going to need him for what comes next. It's time to let him out of the box. And that's not just an excuse for me to do my Batman voice, but it works. But Bruce is actually talking about none other than Plastic Man, who's in some sort of stasis cocoon on the moon. Who knows how long he's been there. From there, he would go on to be a part of a team called the Terrifics with Mr. Terrific and his son Offspring and a couple others. They went through the multiverse and had a bunch of adventures, as well as he got his own solo series again and several other guest appearances. There is one I do want to shine a light on. It was Batman Urban Legends number 15. It deals with the origin of Plastic Man. Nothing too special, but Plastic Man does reveal that he was in Gotham City shortly before he got his powers, and the Joker came and took over the tour bus he was on and started killing everybody, but Batman showed up and saved the life of Eel O'Brien. And he decided right then and there he was going to turn his life around. His next job would be his lab. This one is interesting for 2 reasons. Well, it's interesting for more than that, but only 2 I'm going to focus on. The first being that it wasn't set during World War II, and Batman couldn't have existed back in World War II, so that kind of threw out the whole World War II origin thing for Plastic Man. The other being that if we come back and unpin that Flashpoint thing I was talking about, where he was evil, like reach down your throat and pull out your heart evil, because as we know, in Flashpoint, Batman wasn't Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne didn't exist, so that same interaction wouldn't have happened the way it did, right? So it's just kind of interesting whether the writers knew they were doing that or not, but it brought it all around full circle. So these have been the many first appearances of Plastic Man over the years. We actually jumped into quite a lot more than I thought I would. I kind of thought post-crisis, pre-crisis, those are the couple first appearances, why not? But turned out Plastic Man had a lot of first appearances. I learned a lot in making this, and I hope you learned something watching it. If you could leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, the best compliment that you can give me in this channel is to share the video with others you think might like it. And if you do know of any other characters with an unusual amount of first appearances, please go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'll see about making a video about them too. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to be on the lookout for more great Haussmann content in the future.